Hi, we're Team 6, working on the Work Scope Log Visualization Challenge by Stork. In this challenge, they wanted to look at a project's budget and compare that with the actual time and costs booked to analyse whether there's a relationship between the forecast and actuals. They also wanted to determine how a project's budget and bookings change over the lifetime of the project and whether these factors can be influenced doing future forecasting. We approached this from two perspectives, that of key decision makers or senior managers who will be interested in how projects across the organisations are performing, and also the views of project managers who will be more focused on fewer or individual projects. The desired outcome from the challenge was to provide an estimate for when a project is going to go over budget, but also, and probably more importantly, why. We created a Power BI dashboard where we visualised the project data that will allow the user to glean useful insights into the factors and trends influencing the various projects.
Data cleaning. We began by familiarising ourselves with the data, using the cheat sheet and the help of Look from Stork to develop our understanding both of the data and the problem to solve. We calculated some quick statistics to help us to determine whether and how we could use the data, the completeness of the data being particularly useful. We removed blank and redundant columns and flagged fields which we wanted to retain but had missing data so it could be used appropriately in the analysis. And we also split fields which had multiple data points to make it more usable.
So when cleaning the data, we identified a few problems with the data quality. So there seemed to be a lack of consistency with some of the fields, and in particular PO numbers, and also having numerous projects under the same PO for certain lines. We also found that a third of entries for some fields were missing data, specifically in the actuals and budgeted hours, which made it very difficult to do analysis on these data points. We also felt that looking through the review dates of certain projects, these reviews were happening at inconsistent time periods, and some hadn't been reviewed at all. And we also felt that building on that, it would have been good to have time series data. So we had historic data as well, rather than just having a single time slice. And this would have enabled us to answer the questions of where projects were going off track. And then finally, we felt that it would be better to have it clearly labelled where dates or values were baselined or whether these are being updated, as we didn't feel that these were labelled clearly, and we felt that some values hadn't been baselined at all.
In order for our dashboard to work, we had to calculate the number of projects for each category that overspent on their budget. Comparing against the number of projects total in this category, we worked out a percentage of those that overspent on their budget. Similarly, we worked out the percentage of projects which overrun against their budget. This was calculated by adding in additional columns into the original dataset with specific functions to allow us to calculate these numbers, as you can see from the spreadsheet here. Here's a run through of the dashboard we've created to give senior leadership teams and project management teams full visibility over their project's performance and to highlight which factors contribute to a project overspending on budget or overrunning on programme. So this is the welcome page where you have two options, one for key decision makers and one for project managers. We'll dive into key decision makers first. So on here you're greeted with two graphs, one which is measuring the likelihood of a project under these subcategories overspending on budget, and the other graph is showing the likelihood of a project under this category overrunning on programme. We've got an average of each graph and a completeness of data to show where we've got data missing under each category. The worst performers are on the left, and gradually, as you get to the right-hand side, these contracts are performing better than the others. This could also be used as a leaderboard to show which contracts are the best performers and highlight which ones need more work to improve their performance. As another example, we can open the filters page over here and look at a number of different categories. For instance, the value of the project, where we can see that there is some correlation between the value of the project and the likelihood of it overrunning. Another example would be the duration of a project, where we can see that the shorter the duration, the less likely it will go over budget compared to the longer duration projects having a higher likelihood of going over budget. So going back to the main page, we can delve into the project management user function here, and we can see project details, including whether it will overrun, the increase in percentage over the initial budget, the budgeted hours per day, and how this compares to the average, along with a Gantt chart for further analysis on the actual project timeline.
We tailored the two types of the personnel for dashboards. One is project managers, the other one is senior managers in different industries. The main is to provide different sets of information relevant to them. This information sets can help the performance of the project very well, including the exact time and cost, comparing different projects and so on.
What steps did you take to deal with any identified quality issues with the provided data? Beginning with the actual data source itself, the Excel file, we excluded anomalies and incomplete information from outputs in which no data is included. We have also identified in the analysis where there is insufficient data and considered them negligible for the overall results, therefore compiling a nice data set that can be utilized within the dashboard. What steps would need to be taken in order to productionize this solution within the business? Firstly, is restructuring the data so that the entry of information is shorter and more intuitive via Power Apps or more extensive use of Excel and Power BI, which will limit the choices and will notify about actions required. We'll need to start to produce the information as real-time data so that comparisons can be made during the timeline as well as the production timeline itself. And finally, link information from other systems into this, like planning systems and accounting information, would be necessary in order to productionize this solution within the business.